I haven't talked about the heart for a while, and it's so important to me because it because it was my life. I had high blood pressure for over 30 years, and I was struggling and thought that I might not make it to C70, and that was devastating to me. So, hang out a little bit. As soon as I can get my voice under control, we're going to talk about heart and its relation to insulin resistance and why I like to talk about it so much, and how insulin resistance, getting it under control, can help your heart issues and hopefully help a number of people from having to face the inevitable cardiovascular disease and disorder that's causing is the leading cause of our death right now, over 50,000 people a day. So before I get into all of that wonderful news, which is wonderful news, where's everybody coming in from? Because I would love to know this morning where everybody's at. I'm in Maryland today. Maybe going to Kentucky soon. I don't know for sure. Well, I do know, but I don't know how soon we're going to be going. Yeah, it's a crazy life of moving. I must be truly migratory, something, I don't know. Um, so where are you guys all coming in from? Are you all in the US? Are you in Canada? Are you overseas? If you're in the US, what state? In Canada, what province? Where are you guys at this morning? And then what I want to do today is just really invite everyone to have conversation. Let's talk about things. If you see things, I want to talk about heart and insulin resistance today. But if you have questions about insulin resistance, what's causing it, any of that stuff, where you see yourself in the list above and you just want to know how to take care of it, let's talk. So, from Port Alfred, Eastern Cape, South Africa. Wow, welcome from South Africa. Okay, where's everybody else coming in from? I grew up in, of all places, Idaho. Yep, I'm a North Idaho country girl. Ended up just north of Baltimore, which is great because I like to travel. But Florida, good morning, Kim. And I like seeing the world. I like seeing, you know what I really like about having been a number of different places, maybe not as well traveled as some, but more than most of the people I grew up with, is seeing the difference in people from area to area, and yet seeing the similarities in people from area to area. The people here, when I go downtown in our small town, and or small town, when I go out and about, the people here are very much the same as they were in North Idaho, Eastern Washington. Guys, we're all people from all over, and primarily we're doing the same thing. We want to live a healthy life, enjoy our life, and love the people in our life, right? I think that's what's true for most people. All right, so let's get into it, you guys. I do want to talk about the heart and insulin resistance, but if you guys have questions, other things you want to talk about, let me know. How many of you guys understand what insulin resistance is, or do you need help understanding what it is? If you need help understanding what insulin resistance is, or need a quick explanation of it so you can understand why this all links up, put a 1 in the chat and I'll start getting into that. Otherwise, we're going to dive into some other things. I think a number of you guys have been in here before. Insulin resistance really does link to almost every disease and disorder that we have today that's lifestyle related. So it's hugely impactful. Later on, I will talk about the solution that I found. Good morning, Janice. And why it's working. But I think what I want is for you to understand insulin resistance and why it's affecting us and what's causing that, so that you can understand why the solution is working so well. I feel like if people don't understand stuff and they're just throwing darts at a wall, the darts don't stick a lot, right? That may not be the best analogy, but let's make some things stick today so that everybody can start to get their health back. Are we in agreement on that? So the heart and insulin resistance. Let's talk. I'm going to go ahead and talk about insulin resistance really quick. And let's just talk about it really briefly. Which one of the analogies do I want to use? We're going to talk about it like a key today. Insulin really is just a hormone that carries sugar to the cells of the body as energy. So it's an energy transport system. But when insulin is carrying sugar all the time, it starts to wear out its key that opens the lock to the cells to allow that energy in. And why is that happening? Why is insulin unlocking the cells all the time? Because we're eating too much and we're eating foods that convert into this energy too quickly. And it's because they've been manufactured and modified. We all know that our food is much different than it used to be. So is it really your fault that you're sick? Or is it this environment that we live in now with our food and everything that's making us sick, that's contributing to why you just can't seem to feel better? I would think it's the latter, since 93% of us are suffering with something like that. So when insulin can't unlock the cells anymore because it's worn out its key, the cells are not getting energy. So all of these things up above start to happen. And the more science looks at it, the more they're finding links between insulin and all of these things. So too much sugar, too much insulin, too often makes insulin resistance. Your cells don't want to take in the energy anymore. What we need to do is get your cells more insulin sensitive, and we're going to go over that in a little bit. But how does insulin resistance link to heart problems? Or let's talk more specifically about high blood pressure, because 80% of cardiovascular diseases come from 80% come from high blood pressure, long-term high blood pressure. 95% of high blood pressure comes from insulin resistance, not just genetics or any of that. Yeah, there's some predispositions to you becoming more likely to have some things for sure, but it's not until you tip that scale that those things start to happen. So there's 5 different ways that insulin resistance causes your blood pressure to go up. It's not about the fats or the cholesterol. That's not what's causing your insulin resistance. Sugar is. I'm going to go over that in a little bit, Muku. If you hang out with me, we're going to go over that, or you can just go straight to my profile and look it up. It's the top link in my profile. Okay. So number one, the one that, that I always go to first, because when we talk about insulin and cells being like, I don't want to take in any more energy because you've been knocking on my door too much, or you've been unlocking that lock too much. There are some cells that I call drama queens, and they love to take in all that excess, right? They want all the news, they want all the excess, and so they're taking it all up. One of those types of cells is your endothelial cells. Those are the cells that make up the innermost lining of your blood vessels. So what I want you to think about or visualize is, if you took the volume of water that goes through like a fire hose, and then you tried to push it through the size of a garden hose, what would happen? Same pressure of water, same amount of water, now trying to go through this space that used to go through this space. The pressure would go way up, right? Things would start to go wrong. Eventually that would break down and just burst altogether. Well, when the endothelial cells are taking up too much insulin, it means they're growing too fast. So now they're getting really thick. And when they thicken up on the inner lining of your blood vessels, it means that that size inside your blood vessel is narrowing down and getting smaller. So now the normal volume that you have in your blood is forced to go through a much smaller avenue. Blood pressure goes up. That's just one action. If you'll give me just a minute to go over these 5 things, we'll talk about why this caffeine is different. And then while I'm explaining this, can you tell me why you can't have caffeine? Because there's adaptogens that attach to the molecule of caffeine that make it act differently in people's bodies. So I had a blood pressure of 180 over 150, did this, and my blood pressure is 112 over 74 every morning. So, okay, AFib. We have a cardiologist, and maybe I know I recorded some of his stuff. I'll try and get a video up from him, Dr. Ahmed. He is a cardiologist who recommends this particular system to every single patient who walks through his door. What he would say is the portion that has the caffeine in it, the tea that I'm drinking this morning, he has them start out on a smaller amount of it. So maybe a portion of a packet, a quarter or less, and see how that goes for you, and then work on it. I didn't have palpitations, but I had extremely high blood pressure and I was terrified at first. But it really has components in it that are heart healthy that help regulate your blood pressure. And I would ask a cardiologist about it for sure. I mean, that is kind of a scary thing, right? So I can't really diagnose from here, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose anyway. So, okay, so back to the blood pressure. The blood vessels are getting thick, okay? Um, Number two, those same endothelial cells put out components that allow our blood vessels to expand and relax. But because they're so thick and contracted, they can't do that. So now those same blood vessels that would in a normal state would expand and contract as your blood flow increases and decreases due to stress and activity and whatnot, just kind of get stuck in this smaller space and they can't loosen up and expand. So in those instances now where you have pressure that's normal, but now you get scared, you get excited, you're exercising, you're putting more pressure, and this can't expand to let that excess pressure through. So yes, I am. So there's that. And then, yes, I'm trying to remember everything, you guys. Oh, it's a morning. So then your insulin also messes with your cortisol levels. And when your cortisol levels go up a little bit, they increase your blood pressure more. So it's like you're in this constant fight or flight mode, anxiety, just all the time anxious and ready to go, and we're not supposed to be. Insulin increases that cortisol level, and that increases the pressure even more. Then another thing that happens is there's a component called aldosterone that our kidneys put out, and that helps regulate the salt and water in our body. Well, with insulin resistance, that's dysregulated, and now your kidneys cannot release salt like it should. So this is why they say to watch your salt with blood pressure. And then where salt goes, water goes. So now that volume that was normal, but is now increased because you're in a constant state of anxiety, is now also increased because there's excess water. So even more volume added to that. So now you've taken this little trickle of a stream and created this raging river and given it no space to go through. That's what's happening with your blood pressure. But the last one, you guys, when we talk about cholesterol and why that's such a big thing, and everybody's so worried, and people are like, oh, stop eating all the fats and you got to be super careful. Well, there are some fats we got to be careful with. I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's not the fats for the most part. If you're eating healthy fats, it's not them that's causing the cholesterol, it's sugar. So when we talk about LDL, and I'm going to give you a calculation in a second, when we talk about LDL, the one that everybody wants to watch, right? If you have an excess of LDL, that's one thing. But what really matters is that there's two types of LDL. You never see that on your blood work, right? You never see, hey, I have high LDL, but they never break it down into what's type A or type B. And why does that matter? Oh my gosh, Pamela, I'm so sorry. She said she had terrible heart palpitations. Man, that's horrible. Okay, so type A and type B. Type A is a really large, buoyant type of molecule. So if you think about standing on a bridge now on that over that river and you drop a beach ball in it, that beach ball is just going to go floating along with the current, and it's really not going to get stuck along the shores. It's just going to kind of bounce along. You might find that beach ball way down the river, right? But then if you took a golf ball, which is like type B cholesterol, which is small and very dense and very heavy, and you drop it in the same river, it may bounce around for a little bit, but it's going to pretty quickly sink to the bottom. Now start dropping more and more of those golf balls in the river. Now you're starting to create a dam inside the river, and that's what's happening in your blood. So it's not just the LDL, it's the type of LDL, and insulin resistance or insulin helps encourage the production of smaller molecule LDL. Now you have cholesterol problems. I do also want to stop here and quantify something. Quantify. So I had somebody write me and say, Misha, I'm doing great. Everything is great with the system. My A1C is down. My lipids, my HDL is up. My LDL is down. But my overall cholesterol panel is really high. What's going on? So I was listening to another doctor, and he said, and he's a heart specialist. I believe it was Dr. Pardeep. And he said, like, look, stop looking at the total cholesterol. The total cholesterol is when we take the triglycerides and we take the HDL and we take the LDL and we add it all together and you get this number. Well, if your triglycerides are in a good range and your HDL is high and your LDL is in a good range, your cholesterol may be up. If your LDL is high and your HDL is low, it's he said it's something he doesn't even like to look at. So pay more attention to the components of triglycerides, HDL, and LDL. So here comes that calculation that's going to help you understand whether you have heart problems or are at risk for heart problems, or whether you're at risk for insulin, because it's going to tell you both things. So you guys get out a piece of paper and pen. And how many of you guys have had labs or like a complete metabolic panel and know where to look for what I'm about to tell you? Because we're going to look for triglycerides. We're going to look for HDL on your labs. And you can just write this down and go find it later. But message me if you need that. I did a video once before. Maybe I'll do another one to kind of show you where that's found on the labs and what you're looking at. But if you got that paper and pen out, write down this calculation, okay? You want to take that triglyceride number. Hopefully it's under 150, but if it's not, that's okay. That's where you're at. Take that number. Say it's 150. Take a look at your HDL. Yep, we're not even going to pay attention to the LDL, even though I just talked so much about it. I want you to look at the number for your HDL, high density lipoprotein. You're going to take that number and you're going to divide the triglyceride number by it. So, oh, that's what I'm here for, Eminem. She says this, or he or she says this has been more information than your doctor, any doctor you've seen. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a person like you guys who suffered with a number of things and like you was not getting answers from doctors. Even though I worked for and was friends with some amazing doctors, I wasn't getting these answers. And when I started getting better, I started researching and listening to metabolic scientists and cardiologists and trying to figure out what was going on. So now I'm trying to help other people. So I appreciate that. All right, so triglycerides divided by HDL. What we're looking for is, and this is even posted on the NIH's website, that you want a number that's below 1.5. So if your HDL is over 50 and your triglycerides are at 150, you're still getting a number of about 3, right? So at 3 or higher, you're at risk for heart disease and you likely have insulin resistance. So a lot of people ask, how can I tell if it's me? I'll give you some symptoms and signs here in just a minute. But this is one way you can tell that you might be insulin resistant without going in and having some weird special test. Now, there is a test called the HOMA-IR, or HOMA insulin resistance, HOMA insulin resistance test you can request from your doctor. Many doctors don't want to run it. Endocrinologists do. A lot of doctors are talking about how the standard, less expensive insulin resistance test doesn't really give them real answers because it doesn't look at enough of the pieces. So use that calculation if you have your labs, and then let's start to understand insulin resistance. So if you have symptoms, let me see if I can pull this up today. So things like that high blood pressure is a number one symptom that you have insulin resistance. 95% of high blood pressure comes from insulin resistance. And I just kind of very briefly explained why. I've done more detailed videos. I'll do some more if you guys want to see those more detailed in all the actions of why that's happening. I'm more than happy to do that because I love for people to know. Now, so high blood pressure is one, right? There's a couple of things, the next 4 that I want to give you that are really common symptoms of insulin resistance, and I want you to check in and see if any of these mean anything to you. If you have skin tags, those little protrusions, column-like or mushroom-like protrusions that are poking out from your skin, maybe they're on your eyes, areas where you rub, on your neck, under your arms, in your groin. For ladies, it could be around your bra line. those little projections of skin are a number one sign of insulin resistance. Your body's overproducing keratinocytes. So remember I talked about drama cells that love the drama, that want all the energy? Well, those keratinocytes are some. They're going to be like, okay, I'm going to take up all this energy. I'm going to overwork. Well, when they're producing so many skin cells, it's got to go somewhere, and it pops out as these skin tags. So if you're seeing skin tags, you're probably insulin resistant. Then the other one is if you have dark skin patches in those same areas. I always say acanthosis, but Dr. Bickman says acanthosis, nigricans. So it could be dark rings around your neck. I used to have them really bad. It could be like those melasma patches along your side of your face. It could be darkened underarms, in your groin, around where your bra rubs, I've seen it on people's ankles where their shoes rub. That's a sign of insulin resistance as well. Good morning, Cajun lady. Why is that a sign of insulin resistance? It's a drama cell situation. Again, those melanocytes that create the color in your skin are taking up too much insulin, and so they're overproducing, and it shows up in these areas. So if you have those darkened skin patches and you have the skin tags, you're probably insulin resistant. And then add on to it, oh, now I have my blood pressures going up, and I'm talking anything of 130 over 80 or higher, you're probably insulin resistant. Those three things alone, for me, would say, oh, I got to get this under control. Okay. There's two more major symptoms, and they're up here, that can tell you if you're having an insulin resistance problem. The first one I'm going to mention, I love, because people used to come at me and say, oh, it's genetics. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. Now, science is uncovering more and more and more that these two things are metabolic infertility. Do you guys know what those two things are? Do you think you know which two of those symptoms I'm talking about that are a real big sign that you're insulin resistant? Well, the number one sign is going to be PCOS for ladies. Okay. And I want you to think about this. When you think about polycystic ovarian syndrome, hear my little voice in your head and say metabolic infertility. Understand that. Understand that it's really metabolically driven infertility. On the men's side, we're going to look at erectile dysfunction and low testosterone. That's metabolic infertility in most cases as well. And what's happening is insulin is a hormone. It's a primary hormone. So it's going to take precedence over other hormones in your body, and it's going to kind of direct other hormones what to do. In women, it's not allowing you to convert testosterone into estrogen. And all of our estrogen, ladies, and progesterones come from testosterone. Yep. We don't have testicles, but our ovaries are converting that testosterone into estrogen. But the high amounts of insulin is stopping that process. Now, when you're not having the right amounts of insulin at the right time, your periods are lengthy, or sometimes they're very short and they're very painful, and you're having problems conceiving children, and your testosterone levels are high, and you're having mood problems, and you're starting to put weight on, and maybe you're getting hair on your face but losing it on your head. All of these things with PCOS is hormonally driven, and it starts with too much insulin. For men, it's similar but different. So it's impeding your testosterone production and uptake. And then, as insulin throughout the body is happening, it's creating some fat storage. One of the things I skipped earlier is when all the cells become resistant to it, they're one of the other cells that's kind of like a drama queen, but I don't consider it that way, is the storage unit in our body, and that is our fat cells. So when we have all this energy running around and insulin's got to dump it off, and it won't go into any of the other cells because the other cells are just refusing it, denied, not even opening the door, it's going to go in your fat cells. Now you're starting to get heavy. What happens in men is those fat cells start converting your testosterone, what little you have. Good morning, Therese. I feel so bad I didn't call you. I want to make sure I call you today. I get so distracted sometimes, guys. Anyway, the testosterone starts getting converted into more estrogen. Now you have love handles, you have man boobs, you have more sensitivities and mood swings yourself, and you have the erectile dysfunction because the blood flow is just slowed down and that function is just lost. I have a number of stories of men who have been able to reverse all of that, regain their function, and get their testosterone levels back in order by just addressing the insulin levels. So those are 5 symptoms that you might be insulin resistant. And if you have more insulin resistant, if you have more than one of them, you most likely are. So we're going to say high blood pressure of 130/80 or higher. We're going to say skin tags. We're going to say those dark skin patches under your arms or on your neck and your groin, all of that. We're going to say PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome for women. And we're going to say ED and low testosterone for men. So if you could reverse all of that by addressing one thing called insulin resistance, or even have the chance of helping that, would it be worth it for you to understand how to address your insulin resistance? Now, there's still more symptoms though. Those are not the only symptoms. Some other symptoms that you could be insulin resistant are things like you've gained weight. Okay, we understand that, but not every overweight person is insulin resistant. And that's an interesting fact, right? But if that weight is in your midsection and your belly's starting to poke out, like you're pregnant, whether you're pregnant or not, you just have that bulging belly, that's a big sign of insulin resistance. You're so welcome, Diane. So what's happening there, we're going to talk about this one real quick, okay? You have 2 different types of fat in your body. You have subcutaneous fat and you have visceral fat. So the subcutaneous fat is the stuff that's on the outside of our bodies. It's jiggly and nobody really likes to look at. But it's not, for the most part, it's not doing a lot of harm, right? The visceral fat is contained underneath the muscle wall of your belly. And it's called brown fat because it has these things called mitochondria in it that brown it up. And what those do are they're little energy cells. That fat under the muscle wall in our belly is supposed to help our organs and help keep them warm. The reason why babies come out kind of chunky because they're not moving around a lot yet. So that brown fat is keeping all those organs cushioned and warm until they're up and moving around. And then babies start to thin out when they start to become past toddlers and they're running around and driving us all crazy with all their, my grandson's favorite thing right now is what next? I don't know what's next, kiddo. I can name off a dozen things and he'll still say what next. Anyway, they're so active now, the brown fat is not as needed, and so they start to slim down. As an adult, when we have that excess of visceral fat and we have that belly that's poking out, then it's actually starting to choke off your organs. Think about your organs starting to get impacted with this fat. Your heart can't pump as well. Another problem, right? Your liver and your kidney function is impeded. Your liver is just really impacted with fat. Now it's starting to become non-alcoholic fatty liver. We'll talk about that later if anyone wants. And it's just an issue. But one of the things I didn't know until this last year was that visceral fat, because I always thought of like from neck to groin, that belly wall really, of the fat under there, that visceral fat can be in the back of your neck and in your tongue. So when you're talking about things like sleep apnea, one of the things that causes sleep apnea is a condition called fat tongue, where your tongue bed has just gotten so thick and heavy that when you're lying down sleeping and you're at a rested state, that tongue is falling back and shutting off your airway. You really can't breathe. Whether you're a mouth breather or a nose breather, that tongue is impeding the airway, and now you're waking up constantly because you're basically suffocating all night long. They have a surgery where they actually cut a little slit in your hole and inject chemicals in it to reduce that fat, right? But if you haven't fixed the root cause, you're likely to regrow that fat. For about 50% of us, you're likely to regrow that fat. So now your sleep apnea is going to be back. Why don't we just take care of the visceral fat in the first place? And the visceral fat is a definite link to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is cueing your body to put on more of this brown fat. Now, so that's symptom 6, right? So high blood pressure, skin tags, dark skin patches, PCOS, erectile dysfunction, and a bulging belly. That's insulin resistance. But what about other things? Because it's linked to so many things. What about, we've already talked about heart disease, right? But when we talk about cognitive disorders, so Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, depression, and yes, it's even linked to autism and the severity of the symptoms, because insulin resistance, when you have insulin resistance of the brain, then you start not being able to take up energy in the brain. 25% of your energy in your body is used by your brain, and the energy is derived from that glucose, right? Yes, leptin does have a lot to do with this. I'm not really quite ready to talk about that this morning, but what I will tell you is leptin and ghrelin are dysregulated when you have insulin resistance. So your satiety never really shows up with insulin resistance, and your hunger never really shuts off with insulin resistance. So those two hormones of leptin and ghrelin are also dysregulated with insulin resistance. Okay, so I know better than to wear a white shirt because I have 60-year-old eyes and they don't like to see the difference between colors. I've struggled with PCOS since I was a teenager. I'm just now 46, trying to figure it out. Okay, so you're 46, so you're about 14 years younger than me. I suffered with PCOS almost all my life, and no doctor caught it because they weren't diagnosing it. I'm assuming that even when you were a teenager, there wasn't a lot of diagnosis and talk about how to overcome PCOS yet. It's becoming more and more prevalent as science is figuring it out. So what we really want to do to address PCOS is address the insulin resistance so that insulin is not dysregulating your estrogen uptake, and it's not messing with the cues from your luteinizing and your follicle stimulating hormones, so that your egg production and dissipation can happen more naturally. But it starts with insulin, and when we get the insulin under control, those actions can start to happen more naturally. In fact, I have a gal who was she started the system that I'm going to be talking about. She was having irregular periods, painful periods, wanted to have a family, was told she was likely not going to have one, ended up, her first month on the system, had her first regular period at about 4 weeks. Second month, another regular period. Third month, no period. And she was rightfully despondent, right? Like, I thought this was working. What's going on? Why am I missing my period? Well, she was encouraged. She went in, she had a pregnancy test, and guess what? The children that she thought she was never going to have, she was pregnant. That baby's now over a year old, and she started her family. And there are other stories similar to that of ladies, young ladies who were suffering with PCOS who had children. Now you're 46, so that looks different in you. It's probably still the weight gain, the hair loss, excess facial hair, all of that, mood disorders. Those things are all still symptoms of PCOS. But if you look up symptoms of insulin resistance, they're also that. So get the sugar under control, get the insulin under control, and your PCOS might just start to see some relief. Okay. Yeah, birth control is not the answer for everything, right? So for diabetes type 1, I have a young man. If you'd like me to show you his picture, I can. I have a young man. He's just the one story that I highlight, who is a type 1 diabetic. He was 11 when he started. He's, I think, 14 now. He lost over 35 pounds. He's reduced his load of long-acting insulin, and he rarely ever uses his short-acting insulin now, and it's helped him dramatically because even if you're type 1 diabetic, so you can't produce insulin, you're still having this dysregulation of sugars in your system that's causing you to inject more or have a pump that has too much insulin going into your body. Now you're still having the same problems as the rest of us because of excess Thank you, Judy. Excess insulin. So it can actually help diabetes type 1. I have a couple of stories. One of them, I told somebody last week I would get stories up about Hashimoto's, and you know what? I promise I'm going to get that today, because she not only had Hashimoto's, but she had type 1 diabetes. And so I'll get her up today, and she's found great success just by doing the system I'm going to talk about in a second. Um, yeah, and birth control actually can cause more. One thing I would like people to explore, because don't just take my word for it, but in all the years that I worked in medical, one of the things, and in a hormone clinic, one of the things that I learned and understood from the doctor that I worked with was, when we're menopausal, that there's a difference, right? Do we need excess estrogen? Uh, I don't know. But when we're doing things like excess testosterone and birth control pills, you can actually cause a dysregulation in your body for some, because you're now telling your body that you're going to give it these hormones, or you're going to tell it that you're going to tell it when to do it, and now your body stops doing it. It's just like a kid. If you tell a kid he no longer has to pick up his plate from the dinner table, that you're going to pick it up. Okay, you're going to come pick up that plate from the dinner table. How long is it going to take away and never again put his plate away after dinner? It's not going to take very long. Our body does similar things with when we're doing all these exogenous things to our bodies. So understand that. You stopped pizza, pasta, bread. You exercise about an hour a day. Haven't been able to lose much weight. So we'll talk about that. Let me get down here, make sure. Okay. So let's talk about the weight part, and then I'm going to talk about why this is all happening a little bit, and then I'm going to show you the solution. Okay, I promise we're going to get to that in the next few minutes. So if we're talking about weight and you're doing all of these things that you know and feel are great, one thing you've got to understand with insulin resistance is that we got to stop eating. It's not just that you stopped pizza and bread. And you guys, some people can have pizza and not get insulin resistant. Our bodies all deal with these different carbohydrates differently. So we got to find what works right for you. There is no like overall ingest this or that that's best for everyone. You've got to be really self-aware and understand, hey, I'm eating this, and it sounds like you're trying to be self-aware, and it's affecting me this way, and that's not affecting me. That's a whole complicated thing, right? But if you're doing those things, you feel like you're cutting carbs and you're exercising and you're just not losing weight, you might want to join me tonight. Dr. Jones is going to hop on with me tonight. We're going to talk about resistant weight loss with insulin resistance. But I'm also going to give you some things that helped me get 50 pounds off, helped me reverse my diabetes, helped me get my high blood pressure down, overcome sleep apnea, and save myself from having another joint replacement, because 2 hips and 1 knee have been replaced. Saved me from a lot of pain and other issues that were happening, constantly bleeding teeth and gums, eyesight that was failing rapidly, all of that stopped. So weight. If you're resistant to losing weight, let's talk about my 6 simple tips first. Well, first, let's talk about why we're there. I'm going to give you the 6 simple tips, and then I'm going to give you the specific solutions. So we're here because we're eating too often. How many of you guys, put a 1 in the chat if you guys have heard online from any of these people that you need to eat every 2 hours? That eating every 2 hours is going to help your metabolism, okay? And that it's about calories in, calories out. Number 1 for eat every 2 hours. Number 2 for calories in, calories out. How many of you guys have heard those things? Okay? And have you tried eating every 2 hours? It's almost like losing weight helped you and insulin was a byproduct of. It's actually very different from that. And I'll go over that in a second if you'll remind me. So it's actually getting the insulin under control that allows you to lose the weight. So insulin is a saver. It's a fat, I called it an energy transport earlier, but it's a fat saver. It's anabolic. It wants things to grow. And that growth also means your fat cells. Glucagon, which I really rarely talk about, is the component, the other side of insulin, and it's catabolic. It wants to burn things up. But here's the trick. When insulin is out and working, naturally, your body's not going to let something out that's going to eat all up all the energy right away. So it's not going to let glucagon do its job. So the trick is to get the insulin down, because when you're in an insulin fed state, you cannot burn fat, you cannot break down fat, but you're sure storing a lot of fat. Okay. But so when you get that insulin level down and allow glucagon to come up, now glucagon can come out and start eating up those excess cells, fat, junk cells that need to go, cells that are dead and dying. It helps start to reset your digestive system, all of that. How do we get the insulin levels down and the glucagon levels up? So it doesn't happen in a caloric deficit. So Alex, let's hang out for a second. I actually, and I have a story I'll get to after I address all this for everybody else that's listening. So we want to get the insulin levels down. That does require some intermittent fasting. Does that mean that I have to go from 1,800 calories in a day down to 1,200 calories because I intermittent fasted? No, it just means that I'm going to take the same 1,800 calories and I'm going to put them in a smaller window so that I can regulate the insulin. It's not a calorie deficit. That's such a flawed idea. And science and more doctors are coming out talking about how it's so flawed. So we want to get the insulin levels down. Let's look at a timeline. And I'm talking about an insulin resistant person timeline. So oh, you got it from Jim. Okay. So when you eat, okay, it takes a couple of hours for that really all to go through and all to like your blood sugar levels to get out there, and insulin starts carrying that and getting it all delivered. But it takes about 4 hours for those blood sugar levels to really normalize low. And then it takes a couple hours after that. For many people, it takes 8 hours, and it could take even longer for the insulin to now say, there's no more food coursing through my veins. I don't have to be out here doing this job. I don't have to be this policeman on these railways of my blood vessels. I can go down and I can take a rest. But we're eating every 2 hours. We're eating foods that are converting into sugar so quickly that insulin right now, if you're insulin resistant, is trained to be out there all the time. Because you're telling insulin, I'm going to eat again, so I'm going to put more energy in. So now you got to be there to be ready to carry this energy and deliver it to the body, because the body can only have about 1 teaspoon of sugar in its bloodstream at a time without start causing problems. So when your body senses that increase of blood sugar, it's going to create insulin. Now imagine that you're eating every 2 hours. Your blood sugars are just starting to get delivered and normalized, and you eat again. So insulin hasn't even had a chance to react and come down, and you're telling insulin, oh, sorry, buddy, don't go away. Come back. We need you. And so insulin starts to say, okay, I'm just going to be out here all the time because this person's eating all the time and they're snacking and they're doing all of these things. And now I've got to be here on guard all the time. We want to train insulin to come down and take a rest so that glucagon can come out and start eating up the fat and the cells that we want to go away. It's not going to eat up your muscle cells. By the way, when you're in an insulin resistant state, you're also not putting on healthy muscle because it's stopping energy delivery to your muscle cells. So now you're in a mildly sarcopenic or muscle loss state. So when you get the insulin levels down and do it correctly, not in a calorie deficit, which jacks up your metabolism, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but in a way that's healthy, you're actually starting to swap muscle for fat. So muscle levels go up, fat levels go down. So you might not lose weight on the scale, but you'll lose a ton of inches. Come live with me tonight at 8 o'clock. Dr. Jones and I are going to go over a lot of that. I have some information for you on what's happened with me since I started the FlOA program in tandem with Feel Great, and that my weight's now changing again. Okay, so for the better. And I'll tell you about all that tonight. Now, so we got to get insulin down, but it can take 8 hours for insulin to come down, right? Let's start at that point. Now insulin is down. Now glucagon says, oh, it's safe to come out and play. So you can come on to live tonight with Dr. Jones and I and talk about all this, Alex. Please do. So now when glucagon comes out, remember it's catabolic, it wants to eat things up. Insulin's asleep, so it's not stopping fat burning, it's not stopping fat breakdown, and it's not encouraging fat storage because it's gone to bed, it's taken a rest. Glucagon is out. Now you're starting to burn some fat. It takes a couple hours, so about 2 hours after insulin goes down before glucagon comes out. So that's about 10 hours after you ate, right? Now 10 hours after you ate, you have this glucagon release. And when it's poked its head out and it's looked around and it said, oh, is it safe? Is it safe yet? About 2 hours after that pokes out, now your gut starts to reset. That gut lining, the gut microbiome, which we haven't even talked about today, starts to reset, and your body's like, okay, let's get rid of some of this junk that we've been carrying around. Dead skin, dead cells, fat cells, toxic cells, all of that stuff gets EST. Yes, EST. It starts to get rid of all of that, and now you're losing weight. Was it a calorie deficit, or was it the bringing the insulin down? It was bringing the insulin down that created it. Now, I'm gonna give you a little hint in just a minute, but I'll talk about it more in depth with Dr. Jones tonight. So, understanding all of this, I do a lot of, I'm a spreadsheet person, we'll go over all of that in a bit, but it's not a calorie deficit that created it. It's the act of getting the insulin down and allowing the other hormone, glucagon, to do its job. You could probably eat 1,200 calories and snack it out throughout the day, and still you're not getting your insulin down because you're still putting energy in your body throughout the day, all day long. But what you are doing is you're telling your body that it needs to subsist on less energy. So your body's going to start to down regulate. It takes about 4 weeks for your energy to down regulate. So you go from 1,800 calories to 2,000 calories, a normal diet, down to 1,200 calories, 1,500 calories, then 1,200 calories. At about 4 weeks, your body goes, oh, this is where we're going to be now. So now I'm going to modulate my energy. I'm going to regulate that down to 1,500 calories or to 1,200 calories. So now everything slows down. You've slowed down your metabolism. Okay. So now that's where you're set. It can take 6 months to reset that back up to an 1,800 calorie load. So now you've overly restricted your calories down to this level, and then you lose your weight and you want to go back to being normal. And the minute you start eating, you start putting weight back on because you told your metabolism that's where you're going to be, is at 1,200 calories. And now it's confused. Like, why are you giving me so much more energy? You told me I didn't need all this energy. Now you're putting weight back on. So calorie deficit is not the best way. Went on a diet with your boyfriend. He lost 60 pounds. You're struggling with getting to 30 and you're insulin resistant. Yes. And you know what, ladies? We're meant to carry more weight than men anyway. Our organs just dictate a little bit more fat storage. It's different for us to lose weight than men. It's always going to be frustrating because men typically are always going to lose way more weight than we are, way quicker. And it's just the way our genetics, our hormones and everything are. Okay. So back to this whole weight loss thing. How do you stop? As I agree. Oh, so you stop decreasing the calories in the first place. Okay. So I don't really, I mean, I am doing kind of a keto diet right now, but here's some other interesting information for you guys. I want you to stop and think. There's new information coming out. Remember what I just said, you're training your body. When we do anything that's super restrictive, like keto, and a lot of people rely on that, which is fine. If you can see yourself doing keto the rest of your life and staying away from carbs and celebrations and all of that the rest of your life, do it. But when you reduce all of that so much, you're telling your body that you don't want it. And then when you go back to having a slice of cake, a bowl of ice cream, whatever, on occasion, your body's going to freak out and your insulin levels are going to pop up again. So for me, it's more about the midline, eating real healthy food and prioritizing some things we're going to talk about in a second. So what I'm getting to with all of this, with hormone insulin and glucagon and that timeline, is yes, intermittent fasting. Because remember, at about hour 10, glucagon is up. At about hour 12, your gut's starting to reset. Now at that hour 12, you're starting to have some actions where things like HGH are being kicked out. HGH is great for helping release fat. Ketones are getting kicked out, which are helping your body tell your body to use that fat for energy. Then at hour 14, those things are really kind of almost maximized. So between hours 14 and hour 16, you have this state where your insulin is down, where your body's really queued up to release and burn fat. So that's why 16 hours of fasting. It has nothing to do with calorie restriction. I still, during the 8-hour eating window, what I would like for people to understand is stop, yes, intermittent fasting is one of the pieces. So we're going to talk about the 6 simple steps to get your insulin under control, and we're going to talk about the solution that I use to get that going. Okay, 16 hours is kind of a baseline, and then that's going to change for people, and we'll talk about that in a minute. If you're overly active and your metabolism deals differently, your insulin levels may go down quicker and your glucagon may come up quicker. You may be good with 12 or 14, but the biggest thing is we need to give the gut and the hormone insulin a rest. Okay, so we need to stop eating for all that time. That means not having popcorn and chips and snacks at 11 o'clock at night before you go to bed. Wake up at 5 in the morning, have a bagel. Now your insulin is just starting to come down and you've spiked it all over again, and you never get into that fat storing state or fat burning state. And that's why we're having problems. So yes, hours 14 to 16. Now the 6 simple steps are this, you guys. You got to get in fiber first. Now, why am I talking about fiber? I'm not talking about fiber to make you poop. I'm talking about fiber to help regulate the blood sugars, to help regulate the fats. And it takes a variety of fibers, not just one type. So there's soluble and insoluble fibers. You need both of those in before you eat. And what happens is they create this matrix in your gut that helps to encapsulate those sugars and those fats and slow down how quickly they deliver into your system. One of the problems we're having is that our modern food environment has stripped fibers, phytosterols, phytoenzymes, nutrients like proteins out of our food, and now we're processing that food too quickly and in our bodies, and it's turning into blood sugar way too quickly because there's nothing that's mediating it, that's slowing it down. So if we look at peaches, peaches used to be about the size of this. Pretty crunchy, far less juicy, a little bitter, a little sweet. That was a normal peach. Peaches now are the size of my fist. Super juicy, very rarely crunchy. How did that happen? They stripped out the fibers. The fibers are going to make it what's crunchy, maybe a little bit tougher to chew, and they're going to give it that little bitter flavor, okay? So when we take all of that out, now that component that is queuing up this slowing down of sugar delivery has been taken away. So we need to get fiber in before we eat anything else. Plus, there's a whole host of other things that fiber does for our gut in helping our probiotics grow. That's a whole other topic. We'll get to that if anybody cares. But right now, we got to focus on fiber and helping regulate our blood sugars. So fiber first. Then you're going to prioritize protein. And so the average person with an average daily level of activity, so you're getting in a couple of hours of activity a day, you're doing all that stuff, you need to get in about 1 gram of protein per pound of body fat. Most of the people that I work with who are saying, I can't lose weight, I have excess fat, I have all this stuff, they're getting in 30 to 40 grams of protein because they're restricting so much and they're just not getting in. And you can't lose if you're in a protein deficit either. Oh, well, we're going to address that. Okay, so let me get through these 6 things, and then I'll tell you why I add fiber in instead of eating high fiber foods, because I just said that even what you think is a high fiber food has been reduced in fiber from what it should be. If you want to eat enough fiber in a day, and say you had broccoli, you know that you'd have to eat like a bowl about this big of broccoli to get the right amount of fiber in, and probably bigger than that. But that's a huge amount. Like, are you going to sit down and eat that much broccoli every day? Most people are not, and they don't have time. So I'll go over why. that's because that's been stripped out of our foods. It's not because we have such different needs. It's because our food has been changed. Even our raw organic foods have been changed. So fiber first, and then you want to prioritize protein. Guys, get your protein levels up. And I'm going to go over this little system that I wrote with Dr. Jones tonight that's helped me. And I'm going to tell you what happened to me in just a week of doing this. Then you're going to focus on fats, healthy fats like olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, and animal fats. Yep. Stop taking the skin off your chicken. Stop cutting all the fat off your steak, which is what makes it juicy and delectable in the first place. Eat that. Protein and fats go together. If you're eating high amounts of protein and you're eating low fat, you're causing this system where the membrane around your muscle cells is created and with the deficit of fat and high protein, that membrane becomes fragile. And now the muscle has the ability to break through that membrane. And the worst parts of it are things like rhabdomyolysis. Okay. So that's what happens when that fat level is too low and the muscle level has been pumped up too much. Things like creatine can do that too. So prioritize protein and fats. So fiber, protein, fats. Those are the first things you should eat. And yes, if you want to eat whole foods, do that. I try to do that too. Then you're going to limit your carbs. So when I talk fiber and when I talk carbs, they're actually the same thing. Okay. What makes the difference between the carbs I'm saying limit and the fiber I'm saying eat? Focus on dark green, grown above the ground vegetables, and that gives you a lot of fiber, okay, without a lot of sugar. Things that are grown under the ground tend to be higher in starches and sugars, which turn into glucose much quicker and cause this insulin spike. So breads, pastas, rice, potatoes, all of that stuff that we love. I'm not saying you can't have them. I'm just saying wait till you're filled up with those other three first. Then the fifth thing is you're going to do some intermittent fasting, which we just went over in length, and why. So a 16-8 fast is probably a great starting point and a great point for most people. I hear a lot of people trying to go to OMAD because they're still kind of tying in that calorie deficit thing to their fasting, and then they're complaining that they're not getting better. They're complaining that they're not losing weight. Their energy levels down. They're losing muscle. Well, yeah, you're not getting in nutrients. You're over fasting. Okay, so then what I want you to do is move your body. 25 to 30% of your body is made up of muscle. Muscle is one of the most insulin receptive tissues in the body. So some weight bearing exercise, not just cardio, weight bearing exercise is really good for you. That's going to help keep the muscle on. Yes, the muscle at a resting state helps burn fat, but it's also going to help you be able to have a place for that insulin to go other than your fat cells. Okay. So those 6 simple steps, you guys, if you need a recap of those, do I know that in the 80s that the tobacco giant Philip Morris bought them? Yeah. So that's interesting, Cajun lady. I didn't know that, but I did know this. And I almost got blocked on live, and I've been kind of being shadow banned because I talked about that a little bit too heavily on a live stream about 10 days ago. But yeah, guys, think about it for a second. The major players in the food industry, there's like 10 major food companies who own almost every food product, every label out there. 10 food companies own almost all of our food. The families that own those companies are either the same families or closely linked to the families who own the big pharma companies. Okay, I'm going to let you put the pieces together because I don't want to get banned. Think about it. All right. So is there any efficacy in one industry making you sick so the other can say they're making you better? I don't know. Okay. So let's join us, Delissa. If you have time tonight, join me at 8 Eastern time. We're going to kind of go into those things. There's so many other things than calorie restriction that are causing weight loss. And that calorie restriction, again, I talked about how it can downregulate your metabolism, but we got to look at hormones. And when we've been insulin resistant for a long time, we now understand that I was probably insulin resistant for over 40 years before it ever tipped into diabetes. But with that came a lot of long-term damage to other hormone receptors, to other hormones, things like my estrogen, my testosterone levels, my leptin and ghrelin levels, my cortisol levels, all my thyroid levels. And thyroid is an energy modulator or mediator. So we got to take a look at all of those things. And when you're extremely restricting, you're consistently, you're causing more damage to those hormones. So Dr. Jones and I are going to talk about that in depth tonight. Join us and let's talk about that. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of information now. So, when breaking the fast, which foods, the fiber, protein, etc. Okay, let's talk about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit. Can I see you? Tasha, I can. I'm just not seeing all of the comments. I don't do 68. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to try and get back on track and finish this up because I promised you. Number one, there's an ebook. You just go to my link up here, tap on it. When the white box comes up again, tap on that. There'll be a link that comes up. And I will drop it in Facebook. But that has that 6 simple steps. So it goes over all of those and talks about all of those. And you'll even get a protein list that comes from Dr. Jockers, not me, but there's a protein list. So whether you're a carnivore, whether you're kind of in the middle, whether you're vegan, there's proteins on there for you. It goes over the fats I listed. So download that. It's free. It's a gift to you guys. I'm not going to bug the poop out of you for downloading it, but just go download that book and that will help you get started. Now, if you can do that all on your own, great. Please do that. And so many people have. But for the majority of us, it is hard to get in that amount of fiber because most of us need to be getting in closer to 40 to 50 grams of fiber a day. And yet we're only getting in about 15 grams at most, even when we think we're eating healthy. And guys, lettuce does not have a lot of fiber in it. So when you're sitting down eating that big salad with that big iceberg lettuce, you're not doing a lot for yourself. Okay. So I choose to supplement, and this is what I do. Okay. I do a tea in the morning. I do a pre-meal drink 10 minutes before I eat. And then I'm going to go over how I eat and all of that in just a second. The tea that I've been drinking this morning helps me when I'm in that fasted state, helps boost that ketone levels. It has anti-cancer, antioxidant properties. It has chlorogenic acids that feed my brain and get energy to my brain. So now brain fog is down, anxiety is down, mood is better, depression is down, but I'm also in a great state of burning fat. It's helping that intermittent fast, and it also has these actions in it that act like those GLP-1 drugs that's shutting down hunger in my brain. It's shutting down hunger in my gut, so I don't feel hunger. I am on my second day of a 48-hour fast, and I'm not hungry. I'm drinking my tea, and when I do get hungry, I'll either drink water or more tea until my 48-hour fast is done. We're going to go over more about that 48-hour fast tonight and the benefits and why that. And I'm doing 48 hours every week for the next couple of months. I'm going to start reporting into you. We'll start on Tuesday night. I'll report into you, and then I'll do some videos on how that's going if you can't make it on the Tuesday night live. But so I start with this tea. It does all of that. It helped regulate my heart, my blood pressure. So I had a blood pressure of 180 over 150. It's now 112 over 74. I'm off of 13 different medications, haven't refilled a prescription in over 2 years. Drinking this tea with the little bit of caffeine that it has in it actually regulated my heart. Okay. Then the fiber beforehand. The fiber has soluble and insoluble fiber. So think about this. Soluble fibers make a gel in your gut. So they soak up water and they make this gel. The insoluble fibers are long, strandy fibers, and they make this like this mesh. But there's holes in that mesh, right? So stuff still gets through. So like the mesh is the container that holds the gel. The gel is the plug that fills it up. Now you put sugars in. Now you put fats in. Now that matrix is slower to digest. So is it depriving you of nutrients? No. But is it slowing down the delivery of sugars into your bloodstream so your insulin doesn't spike so high? Yes. Science has shown, studies have shown, this reduces a blood sugar spike by 20% and an insulin spike by 13% with one packet. With 2, in one sitting, and yes, you can do two, it reduces your blood sugar spike by 28% and your insulin, or your blood sugar spike by 27, your insulin by 28%. That's huge, okay? How much would you have to eat before you got to your steak before you could get that effect? So the next thing people always say is there's only 5 grams in there. It's not just about the grams of fiber, you guys. It's about the types of fiber and what they're doing in your body. So there's 5 grams in there, 2 packets a day for me. That's 10 grams. I've upped it to 3 packets because I'm really trying to up my fiber right now. All right, so that's all I do. And you can get that. The top link in my profile is there. It has a 90-day money-back guarantee. It has a low price guarantee. You get coaching from me, and you get the quality guarantee. It's triple tested to make sure that what we say is there is there. So that's all hugely important, you guys. And if you're going to Amazon, eBay, Walmart, you're not getting any of those guarantees, and you're not getting the coaching. So one of the cues is when you go to my link, it's going to take you directly to the company website. That's how you know it's trusted. If it's not taking you to the company website, save yourself the money and the time. All right, so now let's answer some of these questions. Did that answer some of those questions, you guys? It's so simple. A tea in the morning and a pre-meal drink before I eat anything. So how I break my fast, and what do we use to monitor your blood sugars? So there's a couple of things you guys can do. I don't have a continuous monitor for blood glucose. I was resistant to them for a long time. I'm probably leaning into getting one the more I understand about all this stuff, that the foods react differently in all of us. So what foods react in a certain way in me are not going to react a certain way in you. So it is important, I think, whether you're using the breath thing, Lumen, which is like $300 to $400, or a continuous glucose monitor that you wear on your arm. I do think it's smart to monitor your glucose levels so you can start to be aware of what foods you can get away with and what foods are causing you damage. There are also finger poke ones, but they're not going to be as reactive, okay? So I think for under $100, around $50, you can probably get a blood glucose and ketone monitor combined on Amazon and test your blood sugars a couple hours after you eat and see how that goes. But the most reliable thing would be, if you could afford it, to do a continuous glucose monitor. Breaking my fast on a 16-hour day, you guys, and even though I'm doing a 48-hour every week fast, I'm still doing or trying to aim to 16 hours on my eating days, my 5 eating days. So those eating days, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with high amounts of protein. I'm just going to take my fiber first. I'm going to wait 10 minutes. And both of these, look at this. This fits in my purse. It goes with me everywhere. I mix it in water. I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about when I'm traveling in other places. How do I find the right fibers? How do I find the right da-da-da-da-da? It's simple. Do I try to get in whole foods? Yes. Now, so 10 minutes before that, then I prioritize protein. I took a picture the other day because I did a crazy thing and I added some sauerkraut because I wanted some gut microbiome stuff in there. But my typical break fast at about noon is going to be 3 eggs. I want protein. And a large egg will have about 8 grams of protein. So that's 8, 16, 24 grams of protein. Okay. Then I'm going to add in some other type of meat, whether it be like I try to stick to no nitrate, no additive sausages, like chicken sausage. I'll do some bacon that's no nitrate, something like that, or steak. So now I'm trying to get my protein level up because remember I said you need to get about 1 gram of protein per pound of body fat. I'm trying to get that protein level up to around 40 to 50 for me. So I want that much meat and egg. Now, trust me, when you've done the fiber and you've eaten that much protein, you're not going to be that hungry. I do add in some avocado or some other healthy fat, but just when I put it in a food calculator, which I recommend you guys to all use one of those fitness calculators to, if you're really interested in what you're doing, to just kind of see where your fats and proteins are and how much protein are you actually getting, because most people are not aware that they're not getting it enough. So eggs and some kind of protein are top for me first thing in the morning. I love eggs. No, I don't throw all the yolks out. No, I don't worry about the fats from the yolks. No, I don't worry about the calories from the yolks. Did I ever say calorie restriction to lose weight? Just because we did intermittent fasting, does this sound like calorie restriction to you? No. So, so that's what I would break the fast with. tonight, after a 48-hour fast, I'm going to be doing one of my protein shakes that will have about 40 grams of protein in it. It will have some good healthy fats. I'm going to go over those macronutrients if you guys want to understand why. Trust a carcass cruncher. Oh, you must be talking about a chiropractic doctor, right? So my first meal tonight is going to be one of those protein shakes. It'll have about 40 grams of protein in it. Why? Because after 48 hours of fast, it's not that my gut is so far out from eating, but I just kind of want to ease back into food. That's my thought and my programming. So I'm going to have a high protein and high fat protein shake before I go to bed tonight. And then in the morning, after my 16 hours, I will start my day. I'll go over what those 5 days of eating are going to look like tonight when I go live with Dr. Jones. But the interesting thing is, because I hear so much about calorie restriction and all of that, I decided to sit down because I'm the spreadsheet lady, right? So I said, okay, if I get in this amount of nutrients on a regular day, and this is where most my normal days have been, and then I multiply that out for 7 days, what's my total load for nutrients and calories during the week? And then I took the way I'm eating now in the 5 days in an 8-hour window on those 5 days, and I multiplied it out to make sure I want to make sure that I'm not restricting calories, that I'm not doing any of that damage. And actually, I do have just a little bit less calories, but my nutrient load is almost doubled on every one of the fats and proteins parts, right? So, and the fiber. So, and it's working. We're going to talk about it tonight. I'll let you guys in on that tonight. But I'm doing it with the Feel Great system, the 48-hour fast, and you can find that in my profile up here. Why do I choose it? Because I'm not a big proponent. Like, let's be honest. I know that Dr. Jones is a proponent of those GLP-1 drugs, but I also know that Dr. Jones has some really good information on fasting and helping people get overweight. We've had long discussions about those GLP-1 drugs and how much I am against them and how much I don't like them. But good information for you and a good program for you is still good information and a good program. He does have programs that just do the Feel Great system and the fasting like I'm doing without all those GLP-1s. And so we're going to talk about that tonight. And if you want to know why I don't like GLP-1s, message me or ask and I'll tell you. So, and just go vegan. I saw that. I'm not ignoring you. But look if you thrive on veganism, good, but not everyone does. So Dr. Lee and Dr. Yao both talk about gene eating and genetic eating. And that means that whatever your genetics are is what your body is predisposed to need. So there are some people in some areas throughout the world who subsisted primarily on vegetables and grains, and they're going to do great on that kind of diet. They're not going to do as well on a carnivore diet, right? There are people like me. I'm Native American. My tribe came from the Great Lakes region. We had a lot of cranberries. We had some, fruits and vegetables during the summer, but the bulk of our diet was traditionally red meats. So I'm going to lean more towards having a carnivorous diet. I try to get those other things in, vegetables and fruits, but I thrive best. And I tried veganism for over a year and I started wasting. And even though I was paying attention to everything, so I did not thrive on a vegan diet. Look, if you do thrive on a vegan diet, great. But even vegans, I have a friend who's pescatarian. I have a friend who's vegan who were still doing all the right things and still suffering with some bloating and some problems. And they started the system and found those go away because even vegans can get insulin resistant. So being vegan doesn't save you necessarily from being insulin resistant. But if it's what works for you, do that. So not the tea and the protein. If you want the protein that I'm using, I can link that up there as well. But it's the tea and the fiber. It's the very top link. Now, the one underneath of it is because many people like me drink more than one tea a day. So as soon as I'm done with this now warm tea, I'm going to be drinking a hot or a cold tea. And that just, again, it's bringing me so many nutrients, and I'm going to be doing some videos this week on the benefits of this tea. There's 13 different benefits of it. I'm going to be giving you some videos on the benefits of the chlorogenic acids that are extremely high. In fact, in this tea, there's 375 times the chlorogenic acids that are great for metabolism and brain and heart. Have antioxidant, anti-cancer properties. There's 375 times more than in a bagged tea. So why this? Because I can open this, dump it in water, shake it up and go, and get that amount of nutrients in my body that are helping me build health, as opposed to having to be in an airport or driving somewhere or out visiting people and carrying 375 bags of tea that I got to steep and try and drink. I don't want to do that. Even 30 bags of that tea would cost me more than that, and it would take me way more time, and I'd be getting a ton of pesticides and whatnot in it. So the very top link is where you want to go. So if you go to my profile link and then right under the red lights, there's a link there. Click on that. It'll take you to my landing page. The top link talks about the system I used. That's where it's at. It does cost about $5 a day, guys. It is... when we talk about $5 a day, my daughter used to get Dutch Bros every day. It cost her more than $5 a day for the Dutch Bros. I'm not having all the crappy food for breakfast, bagels and pancakes and all that stuff anymore. That's saving me money. I'm not buying 13 different medications. That's saving me money. I used to be at the doctor's office twice a month because my health was failing. So the time, the effort, the gas that I'm saving from that is saving me all of that. I found that my budget, overall budget, actually went down with the system. $5 a day if you put it on subscription. You can cancel that at any time. You'll get, generally they have a free hand mixer. I'm not looking at it, that you get with it. Plus you're saving the shipping. So not only are you saving the $5, you're not paying about $9.99 in shipping. So that ends up being about $15 savings. So there's that. Okay. And you guys, if you really want to know, there's a 90-day money back guarantee. So if you do this, please commit to yourself that you're going to try 90 days. I can't tell you how many people call me back and they're like, in 30 days, they're like, I haven't lost any weight. Well, did you take your measurements like I told you to? Or are you just looking at the scale? Because remember, with insulin resistance, you're losing weight or you're losing muscle, you're gaining fat. When you start becoming insulin sensitive and feeding your body and doing the right things, your muscle levels are coming up, your fat levels are going down. Per volume, muscle weighs more than fat. Many people like myself, and I was one at 30 days, I was like, this isn't working. I haven't lost any weight. At 6 weeks, I had lost 15 pounds. By 5 months, I'd lost 55 pounds. You have to be patient. You've been sick for a while. This is a natural system. It's going to help build your body from the inside out if you give it a chance. Give it 90 days. If you're not happy at the end of 90 days, you can return it. Keep the boxes. They'll want the boxes. Why do they want the boxes, by the way? Because what they're doing is they're checking for the lot numbers to see how many returns they're getting from a lot number, so they know if there was a problem with that batch and if they need to pull that batch and hold it. So they're looking out for you. That's why they're holding on the boxes. You do, but you've got to do it for 90 days. Let me help you. I will talk to you. I will coach you. I will answer all these questions. I was just on the phone several times yesterday with people who were struggling with things, who were saying they couldn't lose weight. We looked at their diet. We looked at what they were eating and not getting in enough nutrients and trying to do the OMAD and all of that. You guys, if you're not getting in enough protein, you won't lose weight. It's a fact. Unless you're in starvation mode, which is not healthy, right? Then you're losing muscle anyway. You've got to get protein in. We do have a great protein that mixes well, and I will get a link for that and put it on my link tree today too. Any other questions? I need to look into Modi. Can you heal Modi? I am not the one to answer that. I can do some research and try and do a video on it for you. That's the best I can answer because I'm not a doctor. I'm just a normal person. So I love to answer these kind of questions because it expands my knowledge, but I'm not going to just say something to you off the cuff to give you an answer if I don't have the right answer. Can we agree to that? What time will I be live with Dr. Jones? At 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, and 5 Pacific Time. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So guys, I am going to go start making some calls and get some other stuff done. One thing there's just too much. We'll talk about it as it comes up on the lives. I'm live every morning between 8 and 8:30. I'm trying to get back to the 8 o'clock hour, Monday through Friday. I am going to encourage everyone else too. You guys, in this life we've had, this has nothing to do with the system, but it has everything to do with insulin resistance. Stress causes insulin resistance as well. We are all so plugged in so often. We're not taking time to spend with our families, our loved ones, to just find things that we enjoy. And we're getting this dopamine hit from electronics, and we're just plugged in all the time. And it's causing a level of stress and anxiety that's raising our insulin. So please find time to unplug. Please find time to look your loved ones in the eye without the phone in hand, without any electronics in hand, and just spend time with them. Which tea can you get? So will you guys do that for me? Can you guys do that? Just, I mean, and for your overall health, not for me, for yourself. I think it's important. I've struggled with that because I grew up in a society that was go, 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 go. I had a dad that was a workaholic. I was a workaholic. Like, I feel guilt for sitting down and unplugging, and I'm working on it. But my family loves that I take time. My little grandson that comes to visit me, there's days I have to work when he's here. And there's days my phone alarm actually goes off and it says it's a Kenny day. And he knows that when it's a Kenny day, Nana doesn't work. We don't need to work all the time. We don't need to be plugged in all the time. We don't need to answer every phone call. We don't need to be plugged into everyone. We need to focus on the people we love and lower our stress level and get some good sleep in return. That's going to help your insulin levels too. Okay, so menopause. The teas, it's actually a tea in the morning and a pre-meal drink that I drink at night. The second, if you go to my profile page, look at that. Click on the link below the red lights. It'll get you to my link tree. The very top one is the system. Right underneath of it is a link to, if you want to get, some people are doing OMAD and they're only doing 1 fiber a day. I get that. Not necessarily the way I would go about it, but people are doing that and they want more tea because they're drinking 2 a day like me. There is a 2-pack of the tea, and the company has now packaged it together to save you some money and allow you to put it on auto ship and save that shipping as well. That's the second one down. It's initially going to take you to a page I created because there was no one link for the doubles of the tea, because you can get the lemon, you can get the lemon and the lemon ginger, you can just get the ginger, you can get the lemon and the citrus mint, you can get the lemon and the coffee. But so you go into that page that I created, click on which one you want, and then it's going to take you directly to the company website once you've made your selection, and there you go. There's some other things up right now too. We'll talk about this tonight. I haven't started the cleanse yet, and I will address this more tonight, but a couple of things I'm adding. Understanding more about the gut microbiome, because I'm diving deeper into that right now. I'm understanding my need for fiber. So I'm going to be doing 3 of these a day to try and get my fiber levels up to where they should be so that my gut microbiome can rebuild. I've been on multiple rounds of antibiotics, had traumas, NSAIDs, all of that stuff can destroy your gut microbiome, and now it's weaker and it never really rebounds until you take care of it. This is prebiotics. It feeds the probiotics in your gut. So I want to give it a good FlOA to have to feed on, so that's changing. By the way, my sugar cravings are down drastically. I am adding some probiotics in, but I'm also going to be doing a cleanse starting on the 15th. I think my stuff comes in here in the next day or so. So I'm going to be doing a cleanse and adding probiotics and upping my fiber intake to try and get the gut microbiome reset so that my body can get back to the normal healthy weight that I was when I was younger. And it's not just about weight, it's about helping like my liver function, my kidney function, my heart function, all of that gets better, and the immune system gets better when your gut function is better too. So yeah, I'm kind of doing a lot this year because that's my New Year's resolution, is to take care of this body because I want to be around for a long time playing with my grandkids. Join us tonight at 8 p.m. With Dr. Jones and I, and we're going to talk about this. And you can ask questions. Those, especially the guy who was in here, he's not here now, talking about calorie deficits. I kind of went over that. You guys, I'm actually getting in 5 days, just about the same amount of calories I would do in a 7-day regular eating window, but doubling my nutrients. And it's working. And I'm going to reveal how that's working in the first week tonight. And we'll talk about that at 8. So I'm going to hop off and get all this stuff done. Love you all. Thank you all for hanging out so long this morning. And thanks for just being open to listening to some different information. And I hope it gives you a place to start to try and start getting your own health taken care of and back, because it's important. You can't be there for your loved ones that I just talked about if you're not healthy. And we don't want to be a burden to them. We want to be a support to them, right? So take care of your health, and that means unplug as well as feed your body right. We'll talk to you later. Have a great day, guys.